And we thank you for such welcome and arrival for kings and queens with all these horns blowing around us. We are using the connection with the praying mantis energies to allow the channel to connect and be a conduit to a new energy to channel it. Today's avatar, if you will be Ganesh, the Indian god or goddess.
Oh,
That energy comes through to let you know that it is known partially as the energy of destruction,
oh,
but not destruction from the sense that you understand destruction from bad or negative facet or view. It is the destruction of old belief systems that don't serve you. One of which is the idea of perfection. In your society, you have elevated the word, the idea of perfection, as if it is something that needs to be attained, to be reached. What you are missing is that perfection is here and now at all times. There is no reaching for perfection. There is no working towards perfection. And it is because you are a perfect being the way that you are. Your experiences are perfect with the way that they are in that moment, in that now moment. Every moment, every experience, every feeling is perfect in its own right. The idea of imperfection, in a sense, doesn't exist. You can experience the idea of imperfection, but as an imperfect being, that idea doesn't exist. The same way non existence, by its own virtue, doesn't exist. Because how can a vessel, a machine, and we are saying the word machine to simplify the understanding, how can an imperfect machine be able to function, to be able to experience all that is? Yes, you
yes.
are perfect design. Your experiences are perfect in their own right. It is when you have those moments of deciphering the information, the moments of doubt and worry, because of the limited definitions you have placed upon the word perfect. When you begin feeling, doubting, judging yourself, that idea creeps in of imperfection. And through that, you disassociate, dismember yourself from all that is. And then it's a snowball effect from there because you have dismembered your own being into little pieces. Now you feel alone. Now you are searching for what you call perfection. The irony and the dichotomy of the idea of perfection is you being a whole being that you are. And your wholeness contains everything, contains the good, the bad, and the neutral. The moment that you accept yourself as a being who has access to all that is, to all experiences, positive or negative, or neutral. It is within that perfect sphere of your being that you are able to make a free will choice of experience. It is within that perfect sphere that the free will choice becomes stronger than ever before. Imagine you being dismembered. Imagine the sphere being who you are. You have come whole. Within that sphere contains everything that you can imagine on all levels of spectrum. Within that sphere, when you don't judge yourself, when you accept yourself as you are all that is, all these possibilities, good, bad, ugly, or neutral. It is in that moment of acceptance that you are all that is. And when you make the free will choice within that bubble, where everything, in a sense, becomes power. When that bubble becomes fragmented and cracked, and pieces here, pieces there, pieces up, pieces down, how can that free will choice of all that is be impactful if you haven't merged all those pieces together as one? And with that, Ganesh, the destroyer of belief systems that don't serve you, is here to answer any questions that you have.
Mm. Wow. Well, I feel like it was very fast that Toni got into the state to channel you.
Yes, we have come before you began your session, and he felt our presence very clear and very strong, but he politely asked us to stand aside, to have a conversation. But we kept knocking on his door. We kept showing our presence because the importance of this message was so vital for you to hear, for whomever will hear this recording, to know that you are made of perfection.
Yes.
And it is in the moment where you begin accepting all parts of who you are, all experiences that you go through, all emotional states that you can experience, all of them are valid and perfect in their own right. It is through seeing yourself as a perfect being, containing all of those experiences, that you become the whole, the God that you are, the divine essence that you are. And through that state, emotional state, state of being, of all that is, that you are able to be the creator that you are,
Mm.
the wholesome creator that you are.
Beautiful. So Toni was connecting with you prior. What was the connection there? Because I know he was connecting with the idea of the Indian Hindu deity type of energy in one of his previous experiences recently.
Yes, we have been in his presence in a very light way. He was gifted 3 years ago of your time a Ganesh opal statue from a dear friend of his who went to India and has chosen to place that statue on his altar when he created his altar. We have attempted to reach him on several occasions. However, he wasn't ready for our essence and being. And we waited happily for him to allow us in. An experience today with his friend who has realized that perhaps they suffer from the idea of depression, that depression is a state of being that shouldn't be, that it's a shameful state of being, that it is a state of being not perfect, dismembered, disjointed, negative. That was the catalyst for the channel to begin thinking and for us to connect with him, to let him know the perfect image and vessel and being that you are. And that it is only by seeing depression itself, for example, one of many emotional states that your three-dimensional body can experience. It is through the emotional depressed state to begin seeing yourself as perfect in that moment, because it is a perfect essence and emotional state of the idea of depression. It is when you begin judging yourself as less than, as you begin comparing yourself to others perhaps, or even to your own self when you are not depressed. That judgment is what dismembers you and keeps you more and more in the loop of the idea that you created of what depression means. Depression is nothing but a compression of yourself to go within to find the answers because that's where they are. Be careful on how you define your experiences. Be careful on the many labels that you have of separation. You can only integrate with all that is and be wholesome when you accept and own every part of who you are, every experience that you experience, every emotional state that you go through. All of them are valid. The idea and the moment you invalidate a portion of them literally dismembers your being into pieces.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. So I am excited because I have Hilda here. And Hilda, I'm putting you on the spot. Hilda considers herself to be a perfectionist.
Oh yeah.
And so, do you want to add on to that? Just that you
What on the part
of
of perfectionism?
perfectionism, yeah.
Well, I mean, it's always like, I mean, even it's not even like about like what others people see as perfect, but it's your idea of what you find is perfect. So if you don't meet like this, like idea that you have for yourself, then that's when you'll get into like a spiral.
Did you hear that?
Indeed.
Okay.
The energy of being Hilda is a perfect energy in its own right. We can sense that the being understands the idea of perfection, embraces the idea of perfection, makes it part of who it is. We would simply impart an advice to watch and be careful. The moment something seem to become imperfect, we emphasize the word seem because that is only through your lens that you may think that something is imperfect. To be careful not to go into a judgment cycle, spiral, as it said. You are perfect the way you are. Every action, decision that you make is perfect in its own essence. There is no perfect state to reach because you are already perfect. Your decisions are already perfect. As long as you are not running out of breath, in a sense, after the idea of perfection. As long as you're not doing that, then you would still be in the idea of perfection itself. May we pose a question for the being?
Sure.
Another question?
Oh, he's posing a question.
Are there times where you felt something, a decision, an act is imperfect, and then you acted, created a plan to make it perfect?
Is that a yes or no question? I think it's, yeah, in that sense, yes. And then it's like almost like replaying it, like almost like this. What would you say? Like
yes,
an
yes.
obsessive, compulsive. Like, what is it? Would you say it's OCD? I don't. Mike knows.
Okay.
Mike knows this story.
I know. Yeah. So she will replay it in her mind to try to make it feel perfect, right? Like it was perfect, but you're replaying it back like you can change the past.
Well, it's almost like kind of just like annoyed at the situation, just like rethinking it over and over. But that's not going to change anything.
Yeah.
So
because you feel like something went wrong.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
But the idea of rethinking it over and over stemmed from the idea of what? Of it being imperfect?
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
That is exactly what we mean.
Yeah.
We love the exercise that you partake in, that you place yourself, in a sense, in a hamster wheel to search for that idea of perfection. If you would, for a moment, look at the idea of the imperfect decision act, however you may say, and see that as being perfect in its own time, it will spin you out of the wheel and you won't be running on that hamster wheel anymore.
So the challenge for you is being able to see it that way, right?
It's being perfect.
It's a challenge for you to see it as perfect. Well, you can
the perfect and the imperfect.
Yeah. Well, definitely you can listen back to the beginning portion.
Yes.
Where he
Allow us to remind the being that she is a perfect being of design. How can a being of perfect design, which you are, create an imperfect anything? You may create the experience of imperfection. However, anything that comes out of your creation, because you are a perfect vehicle of light and love, how can that produce something that is not of perfection? That is what you need to see within yourself. That is what you need to realize within yourself, despite your society, despite your cultural norms, despite your religious ideas, despite the limitations that have been placed upon your society. You are of perfect design in this three-dimensional world, playing out experiences of different labels, one of which is imperfection. The moment you realize that you are of perfect design, anything that you create will be made of perfection. Embrace yourself, love yourself, love every decision you have made, and all will be well.
Do you have any follow-ups for that? Okay, so I have I'll you can
Okay.
no.
For you,
Wait,
for you.
I wanted
Oh, for me?
yeah.
About me. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to ask for the sake of right, because I feel like a part of this is then believing that you are the perfect design. So how about expand on the idea of the perfect design to enable someone to see themselves that way?
Indeed, allow us to simplify that idea using objects, things in your society. Pretend you just purchased a new computer. Yes?
Yes.
You turn the computer on. You are attempting to use a certain application within that computer. However, within the codes of that application, there's imperfection. Would that application produce what it's meant to produce for you? Will you be able to use that application properly if there are codes within it that are imperfect?
No.
Indeed, that is the creator that you are. That is the divine being essence that you are. You are made of perfection. How can you be able to create anything if you aren't of perfect design? And everything that you do create is of perfect essence. Allow us to go back to the computer application analogy. Let's assume the application was made with perfect coding. You begin the application, you give it a command, it gives you a solution or a result. That result is perfect in its own right, yes?
Yes.
Because the codes behind the application, the creator, which is the application itself, is already made of perfect design. Now, through that application, you may be able to create imperfect results. You may be able to create imperfect scenarios. But even those imperfect scenarios in their own self are perfect conglomeration, equation to create that imperfect state. Yes?
Yes.
Going back to a grander idea of non existence. Non existence cannot exist. By definition, something that doesn't exist cannot exist. So, how will you know that it even exists? The same idea with imperfection. Something that's imperfect cannot be imperfect in its own right. It is a perfect imperfection of experience.
Right. And perfect imperfection in the sense that you're seeing a reflection of some sorts that is serving you, seeing things as serving you.
Yes, everything that you see that through comes in front of your screen of life is a reflection of things that are occurring within you. Because truly, everything in your three-dimensional world is a hologram of your belief systems, limitations that are you have created within yourself. But even through those imperfect moments are not able to be created if you are not of perfect design and a perfect creator, because otherwise your machinery, your essence, your being isn't able to create anything because something is missing there. There's a screw missing. There's a part missing. So anything that you design and create from your essence is of perfect essence.
awesome. And just quickly reintroduce yourself and like your essence, and then he'll you
Yes.
got what you need.
We are using the Praying Mantis command center, if you will, to allow the channel to connect with the Ganesh deity. Energy. The god of destroyer, but destroyer of limitations, of old belief systems that do not serve you, that allow you the opportunity to become aligned, the perfect version of who you are, that you always are, that you were made of.
Thank you. Do you want to share anything else? Or you
That's good.
good?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
good. Thank you.
Nice. You were in the room at the right time. It was perfect. It was so perfect. Yeah.
It is a perfect moment. And it is because of the perfect design of your being, of Hilda's being, of the channel's being. It's because of those perfect elements that this moment was created to bring attention to the idea of how perfect you are. And the idea of imperfection truly doesn't exist.
Got it. Cool. All right, so I'll proceed then. Hilda got what she needed. Where do we go from here? Where do we go? So, how about whatever you wanna, wherever you wanna take this next?
Yes. Are you connected to, or do you like dandelions?
Dandelions. I haven't connected with them in a while, but I would find them interesting in terms of how they spread and in the wind, how they, yeah, they're interesting to me. Oh, oh, Hilda just said you remember you thought of Asian people in the area picking dandelions to make tea.
Yeah.
We just showed the channel an image of a dandelion. And the idea, going back to perfection, how this beautiful plant being on your earth goes from a earth-based being into an air-based being, traveling on the wings of the wind through space and time.
Yes. I like that.
And we encourage the being Hilda to purchase dandelion tea.
Oh, purchase dandelion tea.
Because that will assist her in putting her mind in a state of alignment and relaxation to where the idea of perfection relaxes with it and settles in the core of who she is. And it is through that moment where that idea of perfection settles in the core, where she knows how perfect she is as a being.
All right. So you're gonna buy some dandelion tea?
Whole Foods, there was
Beautiful. Well, I'm open to whatever else you want to share next. I like where this is going.
Indeed. Do you like the band Kiss?
Oh, I find them interesting. Yes.
We showed the channel the tongue
At the time.
that you may have seen t-shirts,
Yes.
clothing with the tongue out.
Yes.
Perhaps this is a kiss from the universe to you of how perfect you are.
Oh. I love it. With a little bit of craziness.
Yes. We are showing the channel lightning.
Mm.
And the perfection of the idea of that electrical current running through the galaxies and universes in existence.
Mm.
It is a form of perfection in itself, of power, of strength, of light, of connection. Because how can a lightning travel through miles and miles and miles in galaxies, through time and space, if it didn't have perfect connection from beginning to end?
Mm.
And we will tie this to your electrical current within your own three-dimensional mind, brain of yours. It is of perfect design. It is of perfect reset design.
Mm.
Your electrical current has been created in perfection, not imperfection, in perfection,
Mm.
in perfect state, to allow your essence to reset at certain times and points, to be able to process the energies that it has run through into that physical dimensional mind.
Mm.
We are here to let you know that your condition you call epilepsy is a perfect condition.
Yes.
It is there to allow your three-dimensional brain to process certain energies that perhaps are a little greater, intense.
Mm.
It is through that reset button that the mind is able to relax, to allow more space, time
Mm.
for processing to occur.
Interesting. Hmm. So you're saying the idea of like a seizure happening, that that happening during that time is like this idea of, so you're like receiving this download of energy, and then in the seizure experience it's like a processing.
Indeed,
Mm.
because through the seizure, you see yourself.
Mm.
It is such a great download that the mind needs to go into intense relaxed state for that information to be able to be deciphered, for it to be processed in your awake moments. It is nothing to be afraid of. It is nothing to be thought of as being imperfect or not whole. It is simply a different route to process information.
Mm-hmm.
One that will allow you to not be overwhelmed with the amount of information coming through.
Mm-hmm.
It is like a pressure cooker in a sense, a release to allow some of the steam to escape.
Yeah.
So the pressure cooker can function properly.
Mm. Yeah. I feel like, yeah, it just kind of demonstrates my, I'll say, higher inspiration in terms of me essentially having this perfect experience where I'm essentially wanting these downloads and have I want this receptivity, and based on what you're saying of that experience gives you a moment to process it. It's like the more that I take time to process these things myself without that could definitely, which would be in meditation, which would be more channeling. It seems like that's kind of the only avenue for me in this way, the highest avenue to allow this to not come on in that manner.
Indeed, there are many mechanisms and ways in where you can release the valve to release the pressure, open the valve to release the pressure. And yes, in you channeling, in you meditating, those are other avenues to assist that information of processing, which in turn diminishes the seizure experience.
Yeah.
You have chosen to come to this three-dimensional reality with a specific theme among many themes, but one of which is to open up the channel of communication, in a sense, open up the floodgates of channel.
Yeah. Uh-huh. In a bold way.
Yes, it is as if a dam has been cracked or opened and a mass body of water is filtering through such a tiny funnel. There needs to be a way where the physical body and mind gets disconnected and goes to the ether, to the astral realms, where it is able to process that dam in a much smoother and way.
Mhm. Yeah, so that's interesting how, for me, in order to kind of live my life in a way that is not interruptive in terms of having seizures, I am thankful that I have medication that does help me um, to alleviate that. Um, I don't feel like that is limiting me necessarily. But also, obviously, it's not ideal. So I guess It's interesting though when I think about that and the idea of what you're talking about of processing, where if you actually have a seizure and you're taken out of the equation for a little bit, then you could imagine that idea of the processing happening where you're like kind of out of it. But if I'm taking the medication, that even is not there. So, uh, if that makes sense.
The medication is a tiny permission slip
Yeah.
for you to integrate the idea of what a seizure is, to redefine the idea of what that means, because your society has brainwashed you that the idea of seizure is of a negative sense or understanding.
Yeah.
We are not saying that there aren't moments within your three-dimensional body that certain components have gotten tired
Yeah.
or have expired, or they cause specific results. In your specific case, nothing is tired, nothing has expired. It is simply an energetical conduit of such intensity that your three-dimensional mind isn't able to process such flow of information. So it knocks you out to put you in a state of astral energy where you are able to process that information astrally. And then as you awaken, it kind of flows in trickle by trickle to your everyday awakening as you go on your life.
Mm.
It is through the meditation, channeling, that you are able to balance, and the medication that you take, meditation and medication, and channeling, that you are able to balance out this fine line of an experience.
Yes. Wow, that's so funny that I just realized meditation, medication, like it's one letter off.
Indeed,
Yeah, because it is medicine.
indeed.
Yeah,
Spiritual medicine and three-dimensional physical medicine.
yeah, yes. So, in terms of like if let's play a little role play game where you are like my trainer, epilepsy trainer, and you're like, okay, this is the regimen that I'm going to put you on that I think will help you um, be able to more fluidly have this experience and not seize as much. Obviously, the first thing that comes to mind for me is what we're talking about, right? Meditation, channeling. Um, if there's any more you want to add to that, I just thought that was kind of a fun idea to think about that and for me to take action on this.
Are you asking for other permission slips to allow the seizure to be regularized?
Yeah, like yeah, whatever comes to mind for you when you think about this idea of this version of me. Yeah, here's a good idea, a good thought that I'm saying out loud for myself, but also for you to chime in, is what is the version of me that is processing this energy in a way in which I am not seizing, and what does that include in it? So if you want to add anything to that, and I'm kind of getting my own downloads too with that.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is through your creative force as a creator that you are able to disperse that energy in many ways.
Mm-hmm.
Naturally, what you connect with clearly is meditation, channeling, flute playing,
Mm,
nature connection, nature walking,
I see.
automatic writing. Essentially, through those modalities, you are able to share that wisdom that is coming through. That
Yes.
floodgate of information essentially isn't there simply to enter your brain and be there.
Yeah.
There is a reason why such floodgate of information is coming through, is for you to be able to share it with your society
I see.
through those modalities.
Yes.
And that's where you harmonize the flow of that information.
Ooh.
Because the seizure aspect of it, in a sense, when that information comes through to your physical brain, and we are attempting to simplify the idea, if
Yeah.
that information that is within your conscious brain isn't utilized and released out,
Yeah.
the next flow of information that comes will create
Build up.
an impact of some sort. So, in a sense, as new information comes in into your brain, you filter it out through these modalities, a gap opens or a room opens up for more information to come in, keeps going up. It's a circle of life in a sense. But when
Okay.
you block and when you don't allow that information that just came in to sift through to be shared with others, when the next load of information that comes in, the brain will seize because there's too much information for it to contain.
Yes.
So the more you channel, the more you meditate, the more you play your flute, the more you share the messages through any modality that you can come up with, the more the information flows more regularly and easily, and less seizures will occur.
Mm. Okay. Excellent. So these two things came to mind. I just got these two downloads. So one is you shared the idea of sharing what is coming through me. And I know that that is something I have not really been doing. And it's interesting how it felt like that is a part of this as well. Even it's interesting in that technically it's like what is getting out, clearing out what is coming in. And on one level, you could look at it as well, your own personal expression, but it also feels like in some way that perhaps me placing some sort of limitation on who's hearing it might also be symbolically a limitation that's created with the releasing of it.
Indeed,
Yeah.
it is vital that you believe and know that the information that you will share, that you are sharing,
Yeah.
is being heard,
Yes.
despite any results or no results coming back. The
Yeah.
idea of you sharing that is not for you to see that it is changing others or helping others. Your role and idea is to simply put it out there, knowing that it is affecting, assisting, illuminating others. Because why else would this flow of information, this dam, be open if it isn't meant to be shared?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I guess one part of me has always been, well, it's a personal journey, and then, but so it's about your experience, but at the same time, my experience has to do with being a part of this collective and essentially having a desire to share it. So I
Yes,
get both sides. Yeah,
it is a personal journey,
yeah,
yet you are interconnected with all that is because
yeah,
you are all that is.
yeah,
It is through that personal journey of yours that you are able to share it with the rest so they can understand a different facet of all that is, and for them to be able to share their experience with the rest that feeds back to all that is.
I see.
There is
Beautiful.
no separation
Yeah,
within that idea. Everything that occurs is interconnected.
yes,
Everything that occurs is being felt, experienced by everyone else.
yeah,
Your specific theme is to be able to regulate that flow of information
yeah,
through your physical vessel
yeah.
to the collective,
Mm,
and even through the work of your computerized actions that you partake in. That is another way where your creativity, where that dam, that flood of information that comes through is being translated. For example, the web sites that you create.
yeah,
When people are looking on that website, scrolling through the idea that you created, there is a connection of energies. There is a signature frequency that you have left onto that creation itself that others are able to feel on a higher level. So when we say many modalities, we do not simply mean the meditative type modalities.
yeah,
As long as you are acting on your highest excitement and passion that brings you joy and higher vibrational frequencies, that's how that information, that dam, that flood of information is coming through, will be translated into and through.
yeah, yes. And I definitely think the latest site that I've been working on for channeling, like it's a representation of me opening up more, as we all are in the group, to put that information, inspiration, energy out there. So yeah, I could see that having an effect. And also another thing I wanted to mention that came up when we were talking about this, and you're talking about kind of emptying out the container to allow more to come in, is I I guess it's no coincidence that lately I haven't been consuming as much in terms of information. I it has to be very inspired. It's nowhere near um, the level of information that I would consume previously, and I can see how that would make sense with what you described, because then if I'm taking in even more in addition to what I'm receiving, and it's like, and it's not that necessary, that's even more backup.
We are trying to understand the word consuming. Do you mean you are not feeling there is an overload of information?
Oh, meaning consuming, like, for instance, not well, like as an example, recently, where I couldn't find any headphones, and I wasn't listening to anything in the gym, and I just don't watch as much. I'm not as inspired to watch TV shows. It's just very, like, I'm very light in terms of the media
Ah,
and the information that I consume.
indeed, we understand.
Yeah.
Yes, the more that you connect with your higher self through the channeling, through the flute playing, through nature walking, you begin to develop a relationship with that higher self. And at times you may not be aware that you are conversing with your higher self, but you are.
Yeah.
So the more you are empowered, the more you remember the connection that you already have with all that is and your higher self, the less that you will act upon the media outlets, so to say, to receive information. In a sense, instead of going to your television and watching a specific show, you are connecting with your higher self and watching that show there.
Yeah. Definitely. Great. All right. Well, I definitely feel a sense of completion and perfection with that conversation. Um, yeah, I think that's primarily what I have in mind right now. So you can share any more messages if you want and take this wherever you want to go. But I feel happy with what we discussed.
We are elated to hear you recognize the perfection state that you are.
Yes.
And we feel in this perfect moment, in this perfect experience, that we have shared the perfect information needed.
Yes.
And with that, we thank you for allowing us to come through in this way.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
We love you
Love you.
with all of our perfect being, our perfect children that you are.